Welcome to Keep Painting Those Miniatures. Today I'm painting the Cygnar Light Warjack, the Charger. This video covers the entire process for the model, going all the way from the box, which I showed the stat card, to essentially the full and completed painted model. There's not really a whole lot about this model that has me inspired apart from his stats line. It's a really simple model, and yeah, I've probably painted it 3 times now. Here I am cleaning up the model. I used a hobby knife to basically take off any gates, that's the bit where they're joined under the sprue, and any mold lines I could find on the model, as well as dry fitting to make sure everything would go together. For the base, I went with a similar design to my other Cygnar models. That's essentially wall filler with some lines carved into it and then sanded back. I started out by priming the base with Vallejo Primer Black. I then did a sequence of 3 dry brushes using Vallejo Game Color Somber Grey, then Reaper Concrete Grey, and then finally I used P3 Menoth White Highlight. I primed the Charger with Vallejo Primer White. For the Charger, I ended up using the same colours as my other Cygnar models. On the armour, I started with a dry brush of P3 Cygnar Base Blue. I then highlighted the armour using P3 Cygnar Blue Highlight. I tried to brighten up the armour even further by using P3 Arcane Blue as a dry brush on the raised areas. It works, but it doesn't work well enough. Here I am beginning my first sort of hunt and search of the silver sections of the model. Well, these were painted with Army Painter gunmetal. And the other part of the search is for the gold sections. I used Army Painter Greedy Gold. Essentially each of the sections is just, looked for and tried to block in as good as possible. Sometimes you mess up and you have to do a cleanup phase. Through each iteration of the cleanup, I go through and first I look for any new sections that I haven't previously covered and try and block them in. Then I go back and I do a cycle of cleaning up the previous lines. Now, this is only because I'm terrible at painting. If you're better at painting, you'll do fewer cycles, but I'm pretty bad. Overall, the model's not hard to paint. I brought up the picture I was going for on another screen on my computer and sort of sat there and just sort of went over and over and over it. Eventually you get to a point whereby you're sort of arbitrarily done. You don't want to throw it at the wall, but you don't feel satisfied with it, and yeah, that's the point where I stop. Now, you may go further and throw it at the wall. Here I am assembling the model. Now, I do this with all my models, usually, or I try to. I pin them. I do this largely because I have found it very difficult to get to the underside of the model when they're on the base. Now, your mileage may differ, but I hate it. It also, now this is something that I've discovered after dropping my miniatures a lot, when you affix them to the base, and if you put a pin in there, they are much less likely to come flying off and, smash into a million pieces when they're pinned to the base. I like doing it. Joining the arms onto the model is more difficult. Now, sensible people won't paint the section that you're going to be joining. I'm not always sensible, so what I do is I tend to use the hobby knife to scrape or scratch up the paint layer that I'm going to glue to. Now, it doesn't create a perfect bond. It creates a pretty good bond, and for the plastic stuff, it's great. For pewter, no, definitely not. For the last step of the model, I ink them. Now, I ink them because I'm a lousy painter. Again, your mileage may vary. I find daubing the section I want inked in a colour usually a pretty good way of creating a good, nice shading across the model, and I do recommend it. For the armor, I used Army Painter Ink Blue. For the metal sections, I used Army Painter Ink Dark Tone. The dark tone is much better on the metals to make them look, I suppose, greasy, if that helps. As I've done with the other models, I painted an arc. Now, I don't understand the exact principle of the arc, apart from the fact I was told to do it. Now, the manual says something about shoulders parallel, perpendicular, right angle, 90 degrees, something, blah blah blah. You can just draw in an arc and people generally are a lot happier. Again. And here's my painted guy. Completely underwhelming, but painted. That's a step above most other people who haven't painted them. The people of the Journeyman League, most of them. Please paint your miniatures. Oh, and finally, keep painting your miniatures, people.